This is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the SteelSeries Aerox 9. This is an interesting mouse with 18 programmable buttons, 12 of which are on the side. Naturally, it's designed for MMO and MOBA gamers, and here I'm going to be unboxing and showing it off to you and talking about the highlights of it. I've been using it for the last couple of weeks, and I'm also going to show it a little later on in the video compared alongside the Aerox 5, which I personally think is a better mouse. However, this Aerox 9 is really interesting for a number of reasons. It's also really comfortable and obviously has some interesting highlights to it. This is both wireless and Bluetooth capable, and as you can see, it comes with that sort of honeycomb shell design, so a lot of holes in there to ensure it's lightweight, and it weighs in 89 grams around there, which is actually surprisingly lightweight when you consider the number of buttons that it has. It has IP54 rating aqua barrier as well, so it's designed to stand up to dust and dirt ingress, so it shouldn't be a problem over time, and it uses the same golden micro IP54 switches that the rest of the SteelSeries Aerox mice use as well, so actually very clicky and very responsive and very nice in a number of different ways. And I'll leave a sound test at the end of the video so that you can hear the sounds of the switches, but I also want to show off a number of other things. So as you can see in the box, you get the mouse itself, a USB-A to USB-C charging cable, because it does have fast charge capabilities, and I'll talk a bit more about that setup in a second. On the underside, you'll notice there's a button to switch between Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz, or just to turn it off. And when you turn it on and the dongle's not plugged in, it flashes to let you know it's not connected. And you can see the grip here, and I'll talk about hand size and mouse size a bit later on. You can also see sort of the ergonomics of it, so you'll see there's nice curvature on the side where your thumb sits and where those 12 side buttons are. Also, what isn't obvious immediately, but is if you look a little bit closer, is there's a left and right tilt in the mouse wheel as well. So it's very subtle, but actually if you look quite closely, you'll see the sort of arrows from the honeycomb pointing left and right. I don't know if that's intentional, but it does actually suggest those clicks, and you'll see it in the SteelSeries GG software. Now, USB-C charging cable and USB-C 2.4 gigahertz dongle, but not to worry, because if you don't have a USB-C port on your PC, you can plug the dongle into this adapter and then the cable into that, and then obviously the USB-A end will plug into your PC. That obviously also works as an extender, so you can extend the range of the dongle if you need to, or just have the power cable close in case you need to plug your mouse in all of a sudden. It's worth noting that the RGB also will flash red when the mouse is running low on battery, so you can get a visual cue on when it's running down and when it needs plugging in. It does have a reasonable amount of battery life to it though. Found it lasted quite well. They claim up to 80 hours over 2.4 gigahertz and 180 over Bluetooth. Obviously, for the most part, you're going to be using it in 2.4 gigahertz if you want the best connection. And that uses that same quantum wireless technology that the other Aerox mice use. It also has that intelligent technology which scans for the best signal to give you a clean connection to the PC. And I've actually found that works really well. The one downside I've found to this mouse, though, is the sleep settings sometimes make it a bit of a faff to get back awake, and I've found the same with other Aerox mice. Basically, there's some intelligent battery saving technology within the mouse and the software that basically sends it to sleep when it's not in use for a short period, and that eliminates some of the battery wastage, but it does mean that it can be a bit of a faff to get working if you've left it idle for a while. The RGB lighting's pretty nice though, as you can see from these various angles, and as I said, it weighs in at 89 grams, which I think is impressive. Now, it's not the lightest mouse that I've tried, but the fact that it's wireless and still has all those buttons but weighs in at 89 grams makes it pretty impressive. And here you can see it alongside the Aerox 5, which I prefer for FPS gaming, but you can see the style, shape and size of them very comparable, and they both have that similar sort of ABS matte finish on them as well, making them really grippy and easy to hold. And if I put the two on the scales, you see, as I said, that the Aerox 9 is 89 grams, whereas the Aerox 5 is 73. So you get a lot more buttons on the Aerox 9 than you do on the Aerox 5, but the weight is only a little bit heavier, so not too bad. Also has that nice slick PTFE areas on the underside, so I found it was easy enough to throw around. Now, I've gone from the Aerox 5 recently to the Aerox 9, and actually when you're holding both of them, they're so comparable. Sometimes it's hard to remember which one you're using apart from the side button difference. So I think that's a good thing, because I really like the Aerox 5, and be sure to check out the review linked in the description if you want to see that and find out more about it. But this is obviously aimed at a different class of gamer, one that demands a lot more buttons, and 18 is a lot to have. I also feel like the side buttons are interesting in a number of ways. So here you can see size of my hands. I'm just about 7 inches in length, and see the measurements there, just to give you an idea of what the fit is like and show you that. But I actually found it's a nice large mouse, pushes up into the hand quite nicely. I don't think it's the biggest mouse I've seen, but it's definitely not the smallest either. It's a good medium to large fit in my hand, comfortable, pushes your hand off the desk so you're not like close to the desk, but also just pushes up into the palm really nicely. As I said, you have this ergonomic shape on the left hand side where the thumb buttons are, and you can see reasonable access to all of them as well. And because of the shape and the way that some of them jut out, it's fairly easy to feel the difference between them. However, they are really small. I think if you try to use this mouse for FPS gaming, you will struggle to work out which buttons what and to press them in the heat of battle. Obviously, if you're using it for MOBA and MMO, it'll be fine. But I think if you buy this mouse to be multi-purpose, as in to use it for FPS at one moment and MOBA the next, you might find you struggle with the format of it. I found that I certainly did if I was switching to those sorts of games, and so that could be something to bear in mind. However, if you want loads of buttons, then you've certainly got it here. The switch response is also really nice. There's no travel that I can see in the main switches, and those golden micro switches give a nice satisfying response to them. The mouse wheel also has a nice bit of feedback on it, and the side buttons aren't too bad either. They don't obviously have the same response as the main buttons, but they also do give a really satisfying click. I'll leave this clip again at the end of the video, but I just want to sort of demonstrate what it looks like. If you want to hear the buttons, stick with me to the end. And I'm also going to go into the software in a second and show you what's possible in there, because obviously the programmability of this is one of the interesting things. You have the DPI button behind the mouse wheel, but you can also customize all sorts of things like the left and right click on the mouse wheel, all those 12 side buttons, and all the other switches as well, and set it up in the way you want and use it in a variety of ways. So it's actually a very powerful and really interesting mouse to game with. Here we are in the SteelSeries GG software, where if you click on engine, you'll see the Aerox 9 wireless. It's currently plugged in wired mode, and it's 100% charged. Fast charging is really important on this because it does charge up really quickly. I found in a very short period of time being plugged in, I'm talking minutes here, you'll get a lot more juice back into it. So if you do find it's running low, and you'll notice that with the red light flashing on it, just plug it in and you can carry on gaming. You can game while it's charging, so if it's plugged in with a USB-C cable, you can play with it in wired mode. Now I've currently got it turned off on the underside of the mouse, so I set the button to the middle and it's off, but it's obviously still working because it's plugged in and it's wired, so it works that way and will charge. But you can just leave it in 2.4 gigahertz and it will still charge as well as being plugged in and have the dongle. So you can plug the dongle in and the cable at the same time and it'll still work and it won't cause any problems. If you go into the mouse settings, you'll see immediately just the sheer number of buttons that are programmable here. On the left side, you have obviously all the side buttons marked as S1 to S12. You'll notice, if you've seen already from those shots earlier, it goes bottom front is 1, then middle is 2, then 3 is the top one. So 3 is actually the one you'd probably reach for the most, which is weird. These are, as standard, customized to be basically the top line of your keyboard. So then all the number buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 9, 0, and then minus and equals. You can obviously also customize them though, so you can choose from a variety of other things. So you can set it as a different keyboard button. You can set up a macro. You can deactivate any that you don't want to use. So let's just say 12 are too many, or you think they're too closely grouped. You can just delete some of them or prevent them from doing anything, or maybe even replicate the same things. There's plenty of options here as well. So a lot of different options, but one thing that isn't immediately obvious that you will see is up here, you'll see tilt left and tilt right. So when you push the mouse wheel to the left, it will give you this tilt left action. And when you push it to the right, it will go right. And again, you can customize these so you can change them to be anything you want. So we could set up to have a keyboard action, for example, and you can set up from various different commands. Let's see, for example, we could have it as a print screen, so you could take a screenshot, or you could have any sort of button press that you wanted. So any button that you'd standard use on the keyboard. You can also quickly record a key press. So it might be a dual combination of key presses that you want to use. So for example, Control and T or Control Shift T. That's a good one, by the way, a good shortcut. And you can do that, so you can easily change those things. On the right hand side, you'll see that there's also what I was talking about with this timer. So the battery slaving timer here is set to 5 minutes as standard, so not using it for 5 minutes, and then it will turn itself off and go into sleep mode. There's also an illumination dim, and you can extend the battery life even further with this high efficiency mode. And then there's the illumination smart mode. You can set this so the mouse lighting turns off while the mouse is moving, which is actually really logical, because basically when you put your hand on it, you can't see the RGB lighting anyway. So if you put your hand on it and you're moving the mouse around, the RGB lighting turns off to save battery life. Polling rate set to 1000 Hertz as standard, so that's pretty cool. And then up here you have the DPI levels, and they are adjustable all the way up. If you set the top level, for example, you can go up to 18,000, which is obviously very high and very difficult to control, but is an option. And you do have 5 different levels in here as standard, and you can switch between them by just pressing the button on the mouse behind the mouse wheel. So you have a lot of different options there and what you can do. And then obviously into illumination. Now this is set into 3 zones of what looks like RGB. But because basically that's the underside of the mouse and in the middle where you can't really see it, I don't really think this bit of the RGB lighting is much worth playing around with. You can obviously also set the back bit. That is more where you'd get more RGB. So there's a lot more RGB at the back here from the underside and shining through from the honeycomb lighting. And you can change it so you can have it to be reactive, which is quite nice. So when you press buttons, it changes. But obviously, if you've got your hand on it, you can't see that. So you could question the point of it. Or you can just go into and have it set for active mode and choose that. So the RGB lighting, I think, is okay. Nothing's going to blow your socks off. And it's not visible when you put your hand on it anyway. But it is quite bright and quite nice. But you might think about adjusting that if you find that you're not getting enough battery life out of it. So overall, a great mouse with lots of capabilities, plenty of programmability, and loads of options if you're into MMO and MOBA gaming. If you find you play FPS games a lot, though, you might struggle with this. I certainly did. Be sure to stick around now to listen to the mouse sounds on the mat and to hear those button clicks. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to come back for more. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for watching.